Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Shocking surge, a single-day record of new COVID-19 cases in BC. Also,
he walked to my doorstep and stole my son's life.
Families of the Surrey Six face notorious gangster Jamie Bacon as sentencing begins. And
basically, just about everything we've got here was people fighting for their community and doing it themselves.
battle for the best. Steveston, crowned Metro Vancouver's best neighborhood.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening. Thanks for joining us. Well, BC has set an unfortunate record in its fight against COVID-19.
Today, the province recorded its highest single daily COVID case count ever. Our Dan Burra joins us now live with more on this. So Dan, first to the numbers today.
124 new confirmed cases, the highest single-day number we've ever had, as you said, so far. BC recorded fewer than 70 cases the past 3 days. We now have 974 active cases. That's also a record high. Almost 2,800 people are being monitored. 23 people are in hospital, the highest since early June, and 7 of those people are in intensive care. Thankfully, no one has died from the coronavirus in the past day, though we have lost 204 people in BC so far. As we learned yesterday, COVID-19 has hit most of our province as you take a look at this map. Some areas like Haida Gwaii recorded the highest case count per population, but the community outbreak there, thankfully, has ended. The vast majority of cases are on the south coast, particularly in Fraser Health and Vancouver Coastal Health. As you can see, Abbotsford and Surrey have the highest COVID case numbers, while Richmond and Delta were among the lowest. Meanwhile, the Squamish Nation announced this afternoon that 8 members of its community have tested positive for coronavirus. Officials say 3 patients live in the same household on the Capilano Reserve. They are self-isolating. The nation plans to close all of its offices for 2 weeks, as some of those infected are nation employees. And all non-essential employees will now work from home for those 2 weeks, and visitors will not be allowed in the offices.
And Dan, we're hearing now that one of BC's biggest school boards says it's working on another option for students to transition to back to school. What are we looking at?
Yes, this afternoon, the Vancouver School Board says parents told them they were keen on another option for schooling in September beyond just in-class instruction or homeschooling. Well, this afternoon, the board says it's looking at what it calls a learn-from-home transition program. It would be a temporary plan allowing students to learn remotely and to get some learning support from the district. The district says students would likely get support through one-on-one check-in times with a teacher. And if parents choose this option, they will remain enrolled in their local school. They wouldn't get kicked out. And they would put in a learning group that could be moved to in-class teaching later in the year. So another potential option for students and parents who may be hesitant to go right back to in-school teaching. And we know, just for the record, that parents in Surrey, the largest school district in the province, are also working on that. Lien, Mike?
All right, Dan Burra reporting tonight. Thanks very much. And health officials have a warning tonight about possible COVID-19 exposures at Wreck Beach earlier this month. It happened Saturday, August 15th. Vancouver Coastal Health calls the potential exposure low risk. Still, anyone who was at Wreck Beach anytime that day or evening is asked to self-monitor for symptoms. And we will have much more to come on the pandemic, including the soaring numbers of infections in Europe and a push to make masks mandatory both in and outside. That's later in tonight's newscast.
Now to a criminal case that has haunted British Columbians for more than a decade. Nearly 13 years ago, Jamie Bacon directed a gangland hit that left 6 people dead, the so-called Surrey Six.
Well, today he faced some of the loved ones of the people who died. Susanna De Silva was in the Vancouver courtroom.
I wanted to look at Mr. Bacon in his eyes to let him know that, he walked to my doorstep and stole my son's life.
She has waited 13 years for that chance, and today Eileen Mohan got it.
I had to make him sit and listen to every detail of our lives.
Her son Christopher was killed after a chance meeting in a hallway in front of their apartment. 3 men were on their way to kill Mohan's neighbor over a dispute with drug dealer Jamie Bacon. Mohan was pulled into the apartment. Another man, Ed Schellenberg, a gas fitter, happened to already be there making repairs. They, along with 4 others, were shot to death. After pleading guilty to multiple charges, today Jamie Bacon, the man who directed the killings, appeared at a sentencing hearing. For close to an hour, Eileen Mohan told the court in painful detail the loss and guilt she feels every day. I wish I had a longer breakfast with Christopher, a longer conversation before I left home. I wish I had not gone to work. I hate myself for bringing Christopher into this world, all the pain I caused him. He would have been saved from this horrible death. And directly to Jamie Bacon, she said, "Just how dare you touch my baby? Who do you think you are to decide who lives and who dies?" It's taken years to get here. As part of a plea deal, the Crown is recommending 18 years. With time served, he could be out in 5. Mohan's mother has a message for the judge.
I wanted her to understand that Christopher still matters, and Christopher still lives in spirit with us.
The sentence will be announced in September. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
Family members of a man shot and killed by Ridge Meadows RCMP officers a year ago are calling for justice.
As Tina Lovegreen reports, they're demanding the independent police watchdog release its findings.
They say they're tired of waiting and want answers as to why their 54-year-old brother was shot and killed by police a year ago in his own bedroom.
And fatally shot him in the face and also in his throat.
Johanna Wagstaffe suffered from schizophrenia, and on the day he died, his sister had called police to help get him to the hospital, something the family had done in the past. Police said he had a knife, something his family disputes.
I was just a few feet behind the officers, and he didn't attack at all. He was not shouting, he was not screaming, he was quiet and peaceful, and not even a sound was heard.
And after a failed attempt to use a taser, another officer opened fire.
We don't even know those who killed my brother. As far as we know, those police are back to duty. And this is very hard to comprehend, because police are not lack of training to deal with my brother. They are lack of humanity.
The family wants the independent police watchdog to release its findings of the investigation, saying they were promised the report on the anniversary of his death. The IAO says the family will have it by September.
We try to get them done between 9 and 12 months. We're often able to do towards the lower end of that scale. In this case, that didn't occur. And there are a variety of reasons for that, not the least of which, of course, is COVID-19.
They're just meant to kind of sit there and wait, without access to support, without access to lawyers or counsel or advocates who are explaining the process to them, who are helping them understand timelines, and who are mitigating unnecessary delays. We really have a system that kind of leaves families to fend for themselves in the wake of a very tragic incident.
The family hopes after the IAO's investigation wraps up that charges will be passed to Crown. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Surrey is one step closer to finding a new police chief tonight. The city is in the midst of a major transition from its local RCMP to a municipal force.
But as John Hernandez reports, critics say the search for a new leader is too rushed.
Call it the job opportunity of a lifetime. The chance to lead a brand new police force in the fastest growing city in the province. The city of Surrey has spent well over a year getting ready to launch its own municipal police force. And the next big step is finding the police chief. The job posting for that role went up about 2 weeks ago. The deadline, 4 p.m. this afternoon. A tight application window that opponents say was too short.
I'm absolutely shocked and extremely disappointed.
City Councillor Linda Annis says the push to get the Surrey Police Force off the ground has been rushed from the start. The move away from the local RCMP started as a campaign promise made by Mayor Doug McCallum.
I think the mayor just wants to get the job done. This has been his pet project, and it's not been a clear and transparent project. It's not been a well thought out project.
But it only received the stamp of approval from the province earlier this year. The police board was established just 3 weeks ago. Now the swift search for a leader. The National Police Federation also raising concerns, noting other cities like Toronto spend months looking for potential candidates.
The police board should perhaps maybe delay that search so that they can open it up to a greater number of candidates and hold a proper executive search like most jurisdictions do.
Requests to speak to the mayor went unanswered.
I have every confidence in the Surrey Police Board.
But Wally Opal, chair of the Transition Task Force, thinks the process is moving at a fair pace.
They'll do the right thing. It'll be transparent, open, and anybody who is qualified will get an interview.
Too fast or not, the city's own police force is set to launch on April 1st, the day after the city's contract with the RCMP ends. John Hernandez, CBC News, Surrey.
An iconic, if controversial, hotel in downtown Vancouver has closed its doors. Trump International Hotel is closing permanently. The company that owns Vancouver's Trump International Hotel has filed for bankruptcy. That's according to documents from the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy Canada. A union representative for hotel staff told CBC News that it came as a shock and staff learned of the closure from the media. Earlier this month, Vancouver Coastal Health warned of a possible COVID exposure at the hotel's lounge. Since 2017, the location has been the lightning rod for protests against American President Donald Trump.
All right, it's official. The best neighborhood in Metro Vancouver is Steveston.
After a summer-long competition on CBC Vancouver, the Seaside Richmond community defeated 191 neighborhoods to take the crown, beating out Mount Pleasant in the finals.
Justin McElroy on why the idyllic waterfront neighborhood took it all.
What makes a neighborhood great? Well, access to water doesn't hurt. A connection to history can help. Great parks and restaurants are also nice. But what really matters is the people who live there.
Everybody's invested in keeping this community the way it is.
Truth be told, Steveston may not be Metro Vancouver's best neighborhood. Yes, there's a lot going for it, but you could say the same about Mount Pleasant, the West End, or plenty of other neighborhoods we've profiled. But in an online vote, pride matters.
I think all of us have some kind of a connection with this area, whether it be specifically the families that have lived here for generations in the past, or the industry, or the nature, or the farming, or just commercial.
And there's probably nobody with a bigger connection in Steveston than Harold Steves. His great-grandparents settled the modern neighborhood when it was just fish and farmland.
There are things that could have been better, but in the end, it's worked out pretty good. There's a good balance between old and new in the community, and I think that's what people really like.
Steves has been around for so many of the fights that have maintained Steveston's feel while balancing tourism, fishing, farming, and housing demand.
Steveston has height limits, so it maintains the character of the street because of people who wanted to maintain the small town community atmosphere. They fought to save the Gulf of Georgia cannery and were successful. The same thing with the Britannia shipyard. And the Steveston Museum was bought under what they called a neighborhood improvement program back in the 70s.
Or, put another way,
basically just about everything we've got here was people fighting for their community and doing it themselves.
So yes, there's great land. Yes, there's great history. Yes, there's great views. But a good neighborhood at the end of the day is about the neighbors. And in Steveston, they showed up to win. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Steveston.
Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Well, you guys were both torn about one being a resident, the other with ties to both communities.
That's right. Big congratulations to Steveston, but I am sad that Mount Pleasant missed out.
Yes.
I know. Mount Pleasant is sort of the current us, right? And I mean, it's, you know, in walking distance from me. So my current heart is in Mount Pleasant, but I'm so excited for Steveston because growing up in Ontario, my grandparents actually lived in Steveston. So that was my first taste of Metro Vancouver. So the history there, you know, I just took my little guy a couple of weekends ago. So I am thrilled. Congratulations, Steveston.
Very well done. All right, so the weekend is here. Nice day for a little walk around the pier in Steveston or anywhere else for that matter. Beautiful.
I was going to say, does this mean I have to do micro forecast for Steveston now every week? Because that's going to get complicated. That should be part of the prize. It is going to be a little breezy if you're down in Steveston. In fact, breezier there than the rest of Metro Vancouver, but nothing that warrants any sort of wind warning. It is a gorgeous Friday evening out here. You can see some nice cirrus cloud behind me, heralding the advance of a little front that will bring us some winds. Let's take a look at the afternoon temperatures across the south coast. 19 at YVR right now, hanging on to a 23 in the valley, a 21 out towards YYJ and Victoria. Here's that front, though, that is approaching, already bringing some breezier conditions to the island. It doesn't have a lot of precipitation on it by the time it gets to the south coast, but there is a slight risk that it will bring a morning shower tomorrow when it does get to us. So down to a 12 overnight. Those showers moving in, I think, nice and early, lingering through to 11 a.m. And it's not a guarantee that we'll get them. Just a slight risk that we may get caught in some morning drizzle, clearing right back out for the afternoon. A little cooler, even though we've been hanging around 20s all week. It's a different air mass, so it will feel a little cooler. And yes, a little breezier as well. But I've got a good-looking Sunday. Of course, the changes would come just in time for the weekend, but it's more of a bookended showery weekend. So I'll take you through Sunday and a look at the week ahead coming up.
All right, we'll talk to you very soon. Thanks, Joe.
The weather update is brought to you by Fortis BC. Using more energy these days? We've got energy-saving tips, easy upgrades, how-to videos, and more.
Of course, the PNE is a Vancouver summer staple.
And while the full experience isn't available during the pandemic, organizers have tried to replicate it as best as they can by making it a drive-through. Now, you might be familiar with the Super Dogs, of course, or a trip through Agricultural Alley. You can see the farm animals. There's also a dinosaur exhibit and a variety of performers on offer. Guests are required to stay in their cars, but as you can see, you're allowed to hang out the windows. Spots do have to be booked in advance, though.
Yeah, we got to do things a little differently, right?
Yes, this is the year. As long as you can drive through and get your donuts, that's the key.
Exactly.
Now, if you're like many Canadians, you may have found the COVID-19 experience a bit of a lonely one. One Indigenous woman has found, though, a way to tackle that loneliness.
Yeah, Anita McPhee is Tahltan, and she lives in North Vancouver, far from family, friends, and her home territory.
But as Wamish Hamilton of our Urban Nations unit shows us, she stars in her own online cooking show that's brought people together and warded off the social distancing blues.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cooking with Anita. Tonight's our special show. And
It's another Tuesday night, and Anita McPhee is in her happy place. She's having 900 friends over for dinner, Facebook style. And tonight, she's going to show them how to cook herring roe on kelp with a twist.
You got it. We're making herring eggs tonight. In fact, we're making herring egg chop suey.
During the COVID lockdown, she posted pictures of meals she was cooking at home. Then, people began asking her what Indigenous dish she was going to make next.
And then I said, oh, would you like to have a live Bannock show? And they said, yeah, put it on Facebook Live.
She began teasing her followers, asking them to choose between different Indigenous dishes. And a show was born.
When we cook our favorite foods or our traditional foods and we share it with you, we're giving you respect. Be kind, love yourself. I love Anita, she's my partner.
Grandma Bear is a special guest on the show each week. She's as homemade as the food and as bossy as the cook.
Now she's a regular character in my cooking show. She's a puppet and she likes to be my grandma and tell me what to do.
Like so many, McPhee did her part, isolating and keeping distant. But she struggled emotionally, and Zoom calls weren't feeding her soul.
And, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen, and just there was so many unknowns, so I went up there, and I got really lonely.
But in Anita McPhee's case, cooking traditional Indigenous food is just the recipe for coping with isolation. Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, North Vancouver.
I just tried to look at her Facebook page so I can watch her Facebook Lives, but you have to be her friend. I think she's going to get a lot more friend requests after tonight.
Oh, yeah, some yummy stuff there. She's in North Van. I may have to barge in and stop on the way home.
You could be a special guest.
Special guest.
Along with the grandma. It's fun. Exactly. All right, a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on the free CBC Gem app.
And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Tens of thousands of people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. today. Just ahead, the calls for criminal justice reform and racial equality.
And thanks for staying with us online on this Friday night. Yesterday, we showed you our film critic Eli Glasner's first trip back to the movie theater since the pandemic began. It was a look at what the movie-going experience is like in these times.
And today, he has his actual review of the movie that he saw, Tenet. And as Eli explains, it was quite an experience.
It feels like he's auditioning to make a Bond film. Like, it really has that feeling of the international locations, the amazing action, these agents fighting this multi-layered mystery. But because Nolan, he's not exactly a romantic filmmaker, it's kind of the anti-Bond in some other ways, because it's not about glamour, it's cool and calculating and precise. And the man in the middle of all of that precision is John David Washington, the son of Denzel Washington. There he is as the protagonist. And I'm not just describing him as the protagonist, that's what he calls himself. That's what he's listed in the credits. And I think, Dwight, that says so much about Nolan and the puzzles that he makes. He doesn't even need a name for his main character anymore. He's just a piece of the larger plot. So you've got Washington as the protagonist. He's this covert agent who's recruited into this organization. There he is. And they are fighting something from the future that can, well, do a lot of damage. Let's take a look.
To do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
You know, I'm spoiled. I got to see this in the Cinesphere with just about, 15 other critics, and I had my mask, so the risk wasn't that bad. Was it worth it? To be honest, I was underwhelmed. I mean, look, visually, let's say this. It is spectacular. I have never seen anything like it because nobody makes movies like Nolan. When you talk about the plane smashing into a building, you know what he does? He gets a 747 and he drives it into a building. For the highway chases, he shuts down a highway for weeks. So you've got these wonderful images that you want to kind of soak your eyes in, but then the story, as it got more and more sophisticated and multi-layered, you know, there's moments where I'll tell you, Dwight, I didn't know what was happening anymore. Who's going where? Which guy is what? I don't know anymore. And, you know, as great as John David Washington was, the one guy that really kept me in it was actually Kenneth Branagh, who is the bad guy. He is the opposition. He is Andre, this arms dealer who is just simmering with arrogance. So in the end, what you have is this immaculate movie machine, this beautiful puzzle that you need to try and solve. But when you get to the end of it, and when I unwrapped it, I kind of felt like it was a little hollow inside. And so I'll end by quoting one of these time inversion scientists. Don't try to understand it, just feel it. 3.5 stars out of 5.
Oh, I thought he was going to go higher.
I thought so too. It started off great.
Yeah.
And then
Gotta see this. Must see it. I love that.
Yeah. 3.5 stars. I still want to see it.
Yeah, we'll go. All right. We've got a lot more news coming up, including the latest on these protests going on in Washington, D.C. Stay right here. Tens of thousands of people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. today, demanding criminal justice reform and racial equality. CBC's Susan Ormiston was there.
Another historic moment in this summer of strife in America. Tens of thousands of Black Americans came to Washington, to the Lincoln Memorial, with one message: enough is enough. Spurred on by the deaths of Breonna Taylor in March, by the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis in May, and this week the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They are mobilizing to seize the moment, to send a message to Americans that Black lives matter and Black votes perhaps matter even more. In fact, most of the speakers said from the podium, make sure you vote. Reverend Al Sharpton, got the crowd going when he said demonstration without legislation will not bring change.
We will come out by these numbers in the heat and stand in the heat, that we will stand in the polls all day long.
This is a direct message to America only a couple of months before the November vote that this group has power. They're going to seize it and make use of it. That's why they came out in the middle of the pandemic, risking a super spreader incident here. Thousands of people groped together, the largest gathering in the US since the pandemic, but they said it was worth it. They had to meet the moment. Most of the people here were masked. So they go from here to the voting booth in November to see if they can actually bring change and affect the injustice they say is happening in this country. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
The NBA playoffs will resume tomorrow. Today, the league and its players outline new initiatives to promote social justice and racial equality, including starting a social justice coalition and using NBA arenas as voting locations in the upcoming election.
We're human. We have real feelings, and I'm glad that we got a chance to get in a room together to talk with one another and not just cross paths and say, good luck in your game today.
The playoffs were suspended Wednesday after the Milwaukee Bucks players refused to take the court to show their anger over the police shooting of Jacob Blake. The move, which put the Toronto Raptors playoff run on hold, had a ripple effect across professional sports. Many Major League Baseball teams also refused to play in the aftermath of the shooting. NHL games were scrapped yesterday and today, but they will resume tomorrow.
We are beginning to see the scope of the devastation left by Hurricane Laura in the southern United States. At least 6 people have died in Louisiana. Most were killed by trees falling on their homes. The storm has weakened, but as Stephen D'Souza tells us, it still brings the risk of tornadoes and heavy rains as it continues northeast.
Nowhere is the awesome force of Hurricane Laura more apparent than in this trailer park here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which really took the brunt of the storm. You can see what the wind did to trailers like this, lifting it off its foundations, tearing apart the roof and siding. If you come around the corner here, you can see there's a hole in the side of the wall. A number of the trailers here, the windows are blown out, and what you see now is what people are coming back to today. Thousands of people evacuated, staying in hotels or with friends. And now they're coming back to pick up the pieces of their lives and finding that this is where those pieces end up, in a pile. And, you know, we spoke with one couple, an elderly couple, who came back to see what was left of their trailer, and they found it simply wasn't livable anymore.
It's just depressing in a way because we worked so hard trying to keep things up, and this is worse than Rita. And we didn't think it was going to be this bad, really. It's just devastating. We don't have no water, no electricity. I can't go in the bathroom and print.
At least you're keeping a good humor about it.
Well, you have to keep your sense of humor or you'll go nuts.
Many people are coming back to find their neighborhoods and the roads impassable because of all the fallen trees and the downed power lines. Hundreds of thousands in southwestern Louisiana are still without power, and many parishes or neighborhoods are still without water. So that means for people who actually rode out the storm and survived the hurricane with minimal damage to their homes, they don't have power or water. So many, like a gentleman we spoke to earlier, are wondering if it's even worth staying after the hurricane.
I'll never do it again. You ever hear a banshee's howl? Because it sounded a lot like that. We got some old locks in the house, and they got skeleton keyholes. And the wind going through it, it's sounded like the most high-pitched whistle, scream, howl thing you've ever heard.
The cleanup and the recovery really just getting underway here, and the question for many people is about relief, is about insurance. Will they have money to get through? But people here tell us that they are resilient. They've been through this before with Hurricane Rita in 2005. So even when you see a site like this, they say they will be able to get through it, they will be able to work together because they've done it before. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
The Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, has announced he is stepping down. The 65-year-old has suffered from a chronic illness for several years, and he says he doesn't want it to get in the way of decision-making. Abe is the country's longest continuously serving prime minister. This is the second time he's resigned for health reasons. It's unclear, though, whether he'll remain in the post until a successor is chosen.
More than 1,000 new COVID-19 cases today in the UK, 7,000 in France. Just ahead, how that country is trying to prevent another shutdown.
Good evening. I'm Bob Karstens, and this is CBC News Saturday Report. Attention all health addicts. If you want to get in shape but lack the willpower, meet a Keep Fit expert with a difference. He makes house calls that encourage his customers to exercise their hearts out right in their own backyards. The friendly Keep Fit caller is Bruce Merritt, and he was observed arriving at a house in Vancouver by one of our overweight and rather incredulous reporters, Fred Causey.
Well, I don't know about you, but I could get depressed. Look at this guy. It's enough to make women weep and men groan. Business must be good, though. He's got an assistant.
First of all, before all this, comes a consultation. Bruce works out goals and limitations with his clients. They may want to work on endurance or stamina. They may want to strengthen particular groups of muscles. Or they may have a weakness they want to overcome, like Joan Watchorn, who has a bit of a bad back.
I have a program that's designed especially for me, to fit my goals and objectives and for my weak points. And so I know when I'm exercising to a program that's specifically for me.
Now, is it very expensive relative to other things?
No, not at all.
What do you charge for this service?
Anywhere from a card program is basically around $40, and that is all the exercises written up on little recipe cards. And then from there we get into the same type of program on, say, a stereo cassette program. If the people have, say, a Walkman or a stereo when they're home, you can get the whole program done on a stereo tape, and then you can just listen to it. There's no fumbling with cards or anything. And then the last type of program we offer is on a video cassette program, and there that fee is $150.
Those are one-time only fees. For $25 an hour, Bruce will come to your home and work out with you.
Feel like working your legs?
Public or private, no matter how you cut it, folks, this is painful work.
That's it. Back down. And one more. Great, that's excellent. Good technique. Okay.
Something new in the world of fitness is power walking. It gets your heart rate up without the potential for knee and ankle damage, which are common among joggers.
So power walking is just a very stepped up, quick walking pace, and we can increase the resistance by adding weights, ankle weights, wrist weights, or as here we're going to walk up a slight incline that will also increase the rate.
This gives me a great idea. How about power lounging? I got the extra weight, and I love to be on an incline. You think anyone will go for it?
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I wanted her to understand that Christopher still matters, and Christopher still lives in spirit with us.
The families of victims who were killed in BC's worst gang slaying shared their anguish in court today. Sentencing has begun for notorious gangster Jamie Bacon. A plea deal for him has been reached, but Eileen Mohan, whose son was an innocent bystander, is hoping to convince the judge to toss the deal and recognize the pain Bacon has caused.
I heard like a taser, gun firing, and then 3 gunshots too. Actually, they should have never used this kind of excessive force.
The siblings of Killeen say a year after he was shot by police, justice still hasn't been served in their brother's death. They're demanding answers from the Independent Investigation Office. Din's siblings had called police for mental health support for him prior to the shooting. The police watchdog agency says a report will be released in September.
And it is not an enviable record. 124 new cases of COVID-19 today in BC. That's a new single-day record in our province. Health officials say there are no new deaths, keeping that total at 204. There are 23 people in hospital, including 7 in intensive care. The number of active cases has also hit a record high at 974.
The British government is urging people to return to offices and workplaces, saying COVID-19 is basically under control. This as its daily case count remains above 1,000.
And French authorities are very concerned after reporting more than 7,000 cases today, the highest number since the March lockdown. As Renee Filipponi reports, France is desperate to avoid shutting down once again.
If you're outside in Paris, it's now mandatory to mask up, even if you can stay far apart. I know it's not pleasant to speak, understand, or breathe, says this woman, but it's necessary. It's the new normal, but that doesn't mean everyone likes it. I feel like we're under a guardianship, says this man, who calls it a dictatorship of masks. The COVID surge is happening right across France. The number of red zones where the virus is active has risen from 2 to 21. Our objective is clearly to do everything to avoid a nationwide lockdown, says the French Prime Minister. In Germany this weekend, police are preparing for a repeat of this. Thousands of people in the streets of Berlin protesting COVID restrictions earlier this month. We must expect things to get more difficult in the coming months, says Chancellor Angela Merkel. She's raising concerns about what will happen when more people are inside again for work and school. The German government is also urging people to stop traveling to high-risk countries. There are similar moves across Europe. The Czech Republic is one of a number of countries to be put on the UK's red list, meaning travelers returning from there will have to quarantine. The World Health Organization says governments need to continue shifting policies.
They do have to do that to get more precise in their measures, but they're also able to communicate them so people understand why something is happening, they understand the purpose of that.
As the virus gains ground across Europe, its impact on everyday life is visible through the measures being taken to try and slow it down. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Canada is only recording a fraction of the case rate that triggered Paris's new mask rule.
But what could it take to make wearing a mask outdoors mandatory across this country? Christine Birak looks into it.
Paris crossed a red line in COVID cases, 50 infections per 100,000 people. But here in Canada, there is no set line, just discretion, place by place.
It's not a sort of straight number game. So absolutely look at transmission in your community.
Masks are now mandatory outdoors in the city of Brandon, Manitoba after a recent outbreak. And tourist hotspot Banff, Alberta did the same back in July, following a surge in untraceable cases.
But certainly we should have somewhat of a standardized approach to this in Canada.
Some public health experts insist it makes sense that when a city has a prescribed threshold of cases, added layers of protection should kick in, including masking outdoors.
I think having a clear trigger as to when such policy is indicated will make it a lot easier to communicate this important public health intervention message to the general public.
She adds big cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal should consider mandatory masking outdoors based on population density alone and people simply clustering together. Hand washing and physical distancing are still considered the first lines of defense against COVID-19. But Canada's top doctor says Canadians should wear masks outdoors if others get too close for comfort.
But even outdoors, I would say Are you able to control the environment to make sure that people are not sort of crowded together?
While Canada may not have a red line now, no one's ruling out the possibility. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
And the number of COVID-19 cases worldwide is inching toward the 25 million mark. As of today, Latin America accounts for more than 7 million of those infections. Brazil has the highest number of cases in Latin America, with more than 8,000 new infections over the past 2 days. Peru has the second highest number of cases, even more than Mexico. But Mexico's fatality rate is more than double that of Peru. Argentina is also struggling with the number of new confirmed cases, topping 10,000 in 2 consecutive days. And the U.S. continues to fare the most poorly, with close to 6 million cases and more than 181,000 deaths.
Manitoba has experienced a recent uptick in COVID-19. 32 more today, bringing the total number of active cases to 418.
About 1/3 of those are linked to communal groups, including Hutterite colonies. Karen Pauls looks at the impact of the disease inside one of them.
24 hours after Tirza Mandel's isolation ended, she's back at work, cleaning windows and doing graphic design projects.
This is where I work out of.
For the last 2 weeks, she, her 2 sisters, and parents were quarantined after her mother tested positive for COVID-19.
Neither she nor we had any kind of symptoms. It was quite a shock.
Mandel chronicled the experience on social media, rejoicing when the rest of the family got their negative test results.
We had a day of hiking and biking, and I think we ended up doing, 66K in a day? And it was a therapy day for us.
One of the hardest parts was when children wanted to visit.
They just yelled over, "Tirza, do you have COVID at your house?" And I said, "Yeah, we do." And then they yelled back, "We can't come over."
The communal kitchen was shuttered. Families ate at home. And one of the most fundamental parts of the Hutterite identity, worshiping together, stopped, replaced by a church service piped into homes over a PA system. Some believe the outbreaks began after the drowning of 3 teenage girls in Alberta in June. People from other provinces went to help search and then attend the funerals.
We were dealing with the illusion that because our communities are isolated to an extent geographically and secluded, that equates to COVID-resistant status.
But when people started dying,
that reality set in really quick and helped break through some of the barriers.
Tirza Mandel is glad to be out of isolation.
So it's nice today to be back to normal.
But school and the harvest are about to begin, communal activities that will increase the risk once again. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
They are facing one of the worst droughts in decades. Coming up, we'll take you to the Maritimes, where conditions have become potentially dangerous.
And it is 6:41 p.m. There's a live look at a glimmering science world, a gorgeous evening on the South Coast. And the weekend is here, Friday, and so is Johanna. Her forecast is next. Stay with us.
The best neighborhood in all of Metro Vancouver is Steveston.
We won! We won! I was telling all my friends to vote! Yeah, we won! Our views can't be beat.
Not only is Steveston a beautiful place to be, but it's the people that live and work here. You can walk down the street. It could take you 1 hour to walk down one block because everybody will stop to say hi to you, tell you their story. Where else are you going to find that? Steveston is the place to be.
It has been a very dry summer in parts of Canada. Southern New Brunswick, for example, is experiencing its worst drought in decades.
Farmers and gardeners are losing plants and crops. CBC's Brett Ruskin has more on the costly and potentially dangerous situation.
There may still be green leaves on the trees and vines, but plant experts say they're experiencing one of the worst droughts here that they've ever seen. Now, this region between Sussex and Salisbury is one of the hard-hit areas. Bob Osborne is the owner here of Cornhill Nurseries.
You can see that the ground is just dust. There's almost, and we were just digging today, and we went down 7 feet, and there is no water down for 7 feet. It's completely dry. So we're looking at a situation where we need like 4 to 5 inches of water, of rain, to even begin to make up for what we don't have in the soil.
He says all kinds of plants and crops are affected. Apple trees, cornfields, hay, even at people's homes with their lawns all dried up, as well as their gardens, their vegetable gardens too. And he said it's not just about the ornamental loss or the financial impact to farmers. There's also an increased risk of fire.
I'm really surprised we haven't had more, and I certainly hope we don't. I think some of these thunderstorms have alleviated a little bit of the danger, but still the woods are tinder dry, and so if you have a fire now, it's going to spread rapidly and right through into the duff of the soil and so forth, and so it's a very serious situation for fires.
Now, Osborne says there's not much we can do. If you have a garden at home, you can perhaps pick certain plants that you like the best and focus on watering those. But as for Osborne and the other farmers in this area, the other gardeners in this area, all they can really do is hope for rain. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Cornhill, New Brunswick.
The weather update is brought to you by Fortis BC. Using more energy these days? We've got energy-saving tips, easy upgrades, how-to videos, and more.
And Joe is back now. So, Joe, we've had a couple showers here and there, and we're expecting some this weekend, thankfully. Hopefully that comes for the Maritimes as well, hey?
That's right. Yeah, moderate to severe drought, as we just heard. Some good news, though, with the remnants of Hurricane Laura. I've actually put it on the temperature map, if I can take you to a look across the country. It's now a tropical depression, quickly losing its tropical characteristics as it tracks east of the Ohio Valley through Kentucky tonight, but it will re-enter the Atlantic, brushing by Atlantic Canada over the weekend. And it is good news, not looking to see any extreme impacts, but a good 20 to 30 millimeters for the Maritimes and more like 20 to 40 millimeters for Newfoundland, also seeing drought conditions. So finally, some good news with this devastating storm system, but definitely weakening and bringing that good rain eastward. Speaking of good rain, we could use it in the southern interior. Our fire danger is slowly creeping up after a couple of good overnight lows, keeping those fire danger rating down for most of the week, but things are creeping up. So we will get a few showers, but the extreme southeast and through the Kootenays still looking pretty dry. Watch as I track this front out for you. Just pausing it tomorrow mid-morning. You can see there the slight risk of showers showing up in the model. I think better chance for the north and east sections of Vancouver, and really just brief if we do get them. And those showers will bring some rain to the interior for the weekend, but not a lot. But we'll have to keep an eye on fire danger. Watch as I take you through to Sunday morning. Look what's coming in from the northwest. Another pulse of rain. This one, better shot of giving us that rain, but not until Sunday night. Quick look at that forecast for the interior. 25 or so use tomorrow. One of the cooler days you've seen in weeks. And that's behind that cold front that will bring some gusty winds through the day. So keeping things relatively cooler across the southern interior thanks to that nice little cold front. So we will feel fresher here, as I mentioned, for Saturday and Sunday. We will be in this new air mass. So just looking at bookend showers, Saturday morning and then Sunday evening. There is a chance those Sunday evening showers could start as early as 4 or 5 p.m., but we'll get some good sunshine before then. And it is a breezier Saturday, as I mentioned. Next week, early look at the long range, seasonal and sunny. Creeping temperatures, though. We could be looking at another hot one for Wednesday and Thursday, but something for everyone in the forecast.
Until then, nice and fresh. Very well. Thank you so much, Joe. It's called Cronk, and they're having a hard time making enough of the drink to satisfy demand. So what is it, and why is the Calgary brew just so popular? We'll explain.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Join CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett on September 10th in virtually celebrating the incredible winners of Surrey's Top 25 Under 25 awards. Register today for your tune-in link and celebrate Literacy Month in September. Sign up for Dakota's Virtual Team Trivia Challenge on September 22nd and have fun while supporting a great cause. Learn more at dakota.ca.
Well, here in BC, the brewery scene is always buzzing with activity. But over in Alberta, there's a new craze happening right now that may rival any that we've ever seen.
It revolves around a vintage drink called Cronk. A Calgary researcher unearthed it after finding some vintage ads from the Calgary Herald dating back to the 1880s. Now, a microbrewery is bottling a modern version of the drink.
So what makes the brew so popular? Well, we'll let the brewers speak for the drink themselves.
Cronk. Cronk is good. Buy Cronk. Cronk is the drink. Drink Cronk. Dr. Cronk.
We hope that the spirit of Dr. Cronk is in every single bottle.
There's such a high demand right now. People want to know what it is.
I think it basically started by accident. I was scrolling through some old newspapers, I guess as you do, and came across these ads. The ads that really were like, just read like Cronk or Drink Cronk, seemed to be the genius of a Calgary business owner from 1883 called F.J. Claxton. He was the owner and operator of the Star Bakery, which seemed to operate on Stephen Ave for a couple of years in the 1880s. When I saw the ads, I thought they were pretty cool, and I thought I would share them, and I thought maybe some people would like it, and that would be sort of the end of it, but it's really gotten crazy out of hand.
Cronk is a 100-year-old beverage that has actually not been produced in over 100 years. So us being the Cold Garden Beverage Company, we saw the recipe surface online and figured we'd take a crack at it. So. Cronk is a sarsaparilla-based carbonated beverage.
It's kind of like what they call the temperance beer or a small beer. So it's like a brewed drink with ginger and sarsaparilla and sassafras and a few other things here and there.
There's chamomile, cinnamon, ginger, sarsaparilla root, and then green tea and molasses. There's hops in there as well, which hops is in every single beer. There's supposed to be sassafras in this, but actually there's not allowed to be any sassafras in an alcoholic beverage. This is the illegal stuff that we did not use. I think there's some kind of hallucinogenic factor in sassafras, and it's not a legal ingredient to be included in any alcoholic beverage. So we replaced that with some sarsaparilla root. And actually the entire recipe is printed on the side of the bottle, which is kind of cool. So if anybody wants to take a stab at it at home, they're more than welcome to. The first batch was very molassesy. Let's just put it that I don't think you could get any of the herbs except for the molasses. So we took another stab at it, and this one is by far, well, the best I've ever tasted. I've only ever tasted one, so.
It comes through very thick, very dark, but ultimately it was made to be an elixir, so it has a bit of that herbal medicine taste.
Maybe it's kind of like more interesting than any other beverage that's out there currently because it is so old and nobody really knows what it was supposed to taste like. We weren't sure what it was supposed to taste like either when we were doing the first batch. Here, there's going to be about 1,800 bottles, I believe. So we should have a good supply of it for at least who knows how fast it'll sell. So it's been overwhelming to say the least. We've had phone calls every single day about it since we announced it a couple of months ago. So people are always calling at least once a day asking when Cronk's going to be ready.
Okay, I would be interested in that.
Quite the elixir. Producer Matthew wants one right now. You can't have one for, well, a couple of months.
No, not until after the due date.
Right.
But it sounds really fun. So apparently it's supposed to taste kind of like a spicy root beer, which I would be down for.
Not medicinal or anything like that?
Maybe a little bit.
Love the name.
Root beer.
Buy Cronk, drink Cronk. Love it.
Get cronked.
All right. That's it for us. We're cronking our way out of here. Dan is back here at 11 o'clock right after the National.
Have a good night.